Few super teams have broken up quicker in NBA history than the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets went into the season with contender aspirations, hoping the core of Durant, Simmons, and Irving could bring Brooklyn a title. And despite seeing relative success, the Nets began the process of blowing up their team despite having at the time the fourth best record in the Eastern Conference. Kyrie Irving was traded at the beginning of February, and Kevin Durant was gone not too far later. Suddenly, this team with finals chances became a team that was years away from a serious playoff run. And while many Nets fans may be drinking that espresso depresso, I want to shed some light on why this team is still worth watching and why there may be a bright light at the end of the tunnel. At the moment, the Nets still sit in the 6th seed of the Eastern Conference, and with a strong roster that many are not giving them credit for, I think they have a really good chance at making the play-in, especially since they're 6.5 games up on the 11th place Chicago Bulls. So let's start off by looking at the future core of this roster, including 9 first-round picks between the 2023 and 29 NBA draft. Now, draft picks may have a slight overvalue, especially when we're talking about in trades, but given the fact that half of the Suns' main core is over 34 years old, those 2020s picks may be pretty decent draft picks. I really said picks a lot in there, didn't I? But so let's talk about the core of this team made up of Cam Thomas, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, and Nic Claxton. Now, I've spoken on the Twins before, but I will still give them their light. Mikal Bridges was a 3-and-D wing who had flashes of scoring in a variety of ways, but the moment that he was traded to the Nets, he exploded into a borderline all-star player. In Phoenix, he was averaging 17 points per game per 36 minutes on a 57% true shooting percentage, but so far as a net, he has exploded up to 25 points per game with a 64% true shooting percentage per 36. Cameron Johnson hasn't been as efficient so far, but he has still seen a scoring bump, and he's making a name for himself in the Nets rotation, and is still one of the best pure shooters in the NBA. Go check out my vid on those two for a little bit more of a breakdown there. Nic Claxton has quietly been one of the league's best paint defenders, standing 6'11" with a near 7'3" wingspan, adding on an impressive vertical leap. It is no surprise that at the time I make this, he is leading the league in total blocks. But he is far more than just a paint defender, having a slender frame and quick feet. Defensively, he reminds me a lot of Evan Mobley, a big who can meet you at the rim, but he's not a mismatch if he's left out on the perimeter. Offensively, Claxton is also having a big year, averaging 12 points and 9 rebounds per game, but he ranks amongst the most efficient players in the entire NBA. At the moment, he is leading the league in field goal percentage and 2-point percentage, with the 4th highest true shooting percentage at 69%, and he's only tied with Rudy Gobert and Thomas Bryant, guys who haven't played nearly as many minutes as Claxton. For the last 2 seasons, Nick has had an individual offensive rating north of 130, so it's not a big surprise that the Nets offense is actually better by nearly 7 points per 100 possessions with him on the court this season. As messy as some advanced stats can be, that is definitely something I like to see. While I expect he will be getting a raise for his next contract, with how he has been playing this season, I have no doubts that he could be the Nets starting center and defensive anchor for the greater half of the 2020s. And the last part of their core who deserves mention is second-year player Cam Thomas. Thomas has become notable for being seen as one of the biggest steals in the 2021 NBA draft, where he fell all the way down to the 27th spot, and more recently where he became the youngest player in NBA history to have 3 straight 40-point games at just 21 years old. The way that I would describe Cam Thomas is that he is lightning in a bottle. He has a natural ability to score from any level of the court. This season, he has been a 40% 3-point shooter. He's also incredibly crafty around the rim. He has the ability to hit that awkward floater, and he has a great mid-range pull-up game as well. Well, on the season, he's only been averaging 11 points per game on a league average 57% true shooting percentage. Per 36 minutes, his scoring does go up to 23 points. Now with Thomas, there is the issue is that there just really isn't any other parts to his game beyond scoring. He got into the league and was drafted on his ability to score and to score well, but when it comes to making plays for others or being a tough perimeter defender, his game really doesn't live up to that. With a franchise looking to contend in the future, they likely want a point guard who can do just a little bit more. Thomas is still only 21 years old, with his rookie contract not expiring until the end of the 2025 season. This is giving him plenty of time to round out his game and add in the skill set that the Nets need. Now, outside of these 4 guys, the guys that I think Brooklyn will definitely want to build around in the future, the Nets still have plenty of solid role players who are making an impact this season, but their time frame may just not fit the rest of the roster. So everyone I'm about to mention are either important current pieces for Brooklyn, or they may be future trade capital. Patty Mills, Seth Curry, and Joe Harris are all 3 sharpshooters who can benefit any team in the league, but at 34 years old, Mills has definitely been showing his age this season, and from what it looks like, Curry is going to walk in free agency. But having a 41% 3-point shooter in Joe Harris with the rest of the players I have mentioned is always a win for a team. I do think his contract is a bit pricey for what it is, but given that he expires next season, he's not going to be tying up the Brooklyn Nets financially. One of the most likable players in the league includes Yuta Watanabe. At 20 years old, he is one of the league's best shooters, hitting 48% of his three-pointers on 2.5 attempts per game with a 67% true shooting percentage. Given how liked he is by the Nets organization and fans, he is also on a steal of a minimum contract. I could see him being on the Brooklyn Nets for years to come. Not to mention he is someone who I am expecting to get a bigger role in the post-Kevin Durant era. Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie are two extremely solid NBA veterans that the Nets got back in the Kyrie Irving trade. Dinwiddie is extremely loved by the Nets fan base and in my opinion is one of the better starting guards in the league. He's having one of the best seasons of his career, averaging 18 points on 5 assists per game on career highs in his 3-point percentage and true shooting percentage. At 29 years old, he is a little old for the timeline, but not someone that I am too worried about, and given his play as of recently, if the Nets really wanted to, they could probably get some solid youth return from him, but I kind of hope that Dinwiddie stays as a Net because he just seems right there. Now, the fly on the wall surrounding the Brooklyn Nets this season has been Ben Simmons. He did have a few big performances earlier in the year, which gave me hope that he may be back, but then he did the Ben Simmons thing and just kind of stopped. Now at 26 years old, you would assume that he is a part of the Nets timeline, but unless something happens in the last few weeks of the season, we really can't count on him to be a part of the Nets' long-term plans. On paper, with his potential skill set, I really love how he fits into this roster. He gives him an excellent defender, he's a great playmaker, he's a great transition player, two things that the Nets are really lacking right now. He fits well into Jack Vaughn's heavy switch defense, and the Nets have plenty of sharpshooters who can round out his lack of any shooting outside of the paint. I could see why the Nets would want, or in reality really need, his skill set for years to come. But since he's on a max contract for the next 2 seasons, not counting this year, he hasn't been the same player since 2021, and from a playing time standpoint, he has been incredibly inconsistent. I'm not really sure how the Nets are going to get any value from him either on the court or by trading him for someone else. Outside of Ben Simmons, the Nets are quietly doing so much better than what is expected. I think Jack Vaughn has been doing a respectable job given everything surrounding the team, and the Kevin Durant trade may be one of the few equal blockbuster trades in NBA history, as the Nets do have a true superstar on their hands in Mikal Bridges. Add in some incredibly solid veterans and role players, a slew of draft picks, and some of the league's most exciting young players, Nets fans have plenty of reason to be excited, even if this season doesn't finish in the way that they were expecting.